my computer is not letting me. Okay.
Not letting you on, huh?
On phone.
Okay. Hi, Gail.
Not letting me on. Hi. It may get there in the next 20 minutes. We'll see.
Okay. Well, make sure if you get on there, turn your phone off. So.
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So here we are. It's 10 o'clock. We're going to start the program. Just wanted to check in. So we've been talking for a little bit for those who showed up earlier or early. I just wanted to see how you're doing. Hey, Ava. Is it Ava? Yeah. Just see how you're doing. If there's anything you want to report, get off your heart, out of your heart into the voice, out of your lungs that you want to express, and just join in with your voice if there's anything before I get started on the full program. I've just been thinking myself, it's just so surreal for one, but also just, the unpredictability of anything and the devastation. I mean, and certainly the prediction that we're going to jump from 3,000 deaths or more to maybe close to 100,000 deaths. It just seems like we're not even there yet to see what this, the repercussions of what's happening. And I was very, very upset to see in countries all over, people are, I'm expecting some violence, and some violence is showing up in some of the countries. People who have the virus or who claim they have it are coughing and spitting on healthcare workers around the country, and other people in authority. It's like, what possibly could you think you're doing there? So anyway, just such an odd time, right? Isn't it, for everybody?
Well, I'd like to say, for me, the connection with nature is really important right now.
Yes, isn't it true?
The healing of the planet, that time that's our intimacy, is our own nature and with that of the world around us.
Yes.
And, I have a local park I go to, and so people aren't used to people saying hello to you, and now I just kind of enjoy being in the park because there's an expansive view, and we all need that in our life, that expansive view.
I think I'm going to mute you, Nancy. I think I agree. I go to the beach once a day, early in the morning with my dog. Nobody there really, and just soak in the beauty as a way of connecting to nature. Because I think that's where the virus is driving us. It's driving us to shift our priorities from the monetary world to the natural world in our own well-being. So I agree. Thanks, Scott. And a kitty cat. We need animals in this space. All right. I got a slide presentation. So what's important about the slide presentation is that there's a lot on here for your review. When you get it, I will send everybody who's going to be watching the recording and listening for later and now a copy of the slides. And so there's things we won't cover here, excuse me. There are resources at the end of it, websites for more information, more articles, ways to take care of yourself. There's one from the Postural Restoration Institute, a really simple movement exercise you can do to help clear the debris out of your lungs and your lymphatic system. So you want to look over those slides and some more references and articles that I put on there that I think are very useful. So I'm going to share my other screen. I look away sometimes, but I'm not looking away from you. I just have two screens, and so I look to the other screen every once in a while. All right, can you all see that? Coronavirus 19? Yeah, great. All right, so here we are. How do we take care of ourselves and stay healthy and recover? So I just want to state out front that the real purpose of this, my scope of practice, is I've been a breathing teacher for over 32 years plus months. And so that's what I have to offer. I have some information that I read, like everybody is available to read, but my breathing work is where I have some information that others may not have. So the purpose of the presentation is to use those breathing skills to keep yourself healthy. And by thinking, how do we keep ourselves healthy? is to use our breathing to make sure that we are fully oxygenated. We need to be oxygen. Oxygen is our most primary nutrient, comes before water, comes before food. And its nutrient value is the fact that it is used in the metabolic process in our mitochondria, in our cells, to produce the metabolic energy that runs our body. It is ATP, adenosine triphosphate. It is the energy currency of our body that gets made from the nourishment of oxygen. Without enough oxygen, we don't make enough energy. And so our whole system is weakened when we don't have enough energy. Energy also in the fact that the parts of us that feel most vulnerable are the ones that suffer first. And usually that's the heart and the lungs that are most vulnerable. But certainly all organs are affected by the lack of enough energy around the body. So that's what we're talking about here, how to maximize our oxygenation. I'm not a doctor, I'm a breathing educator. So this isn't medical advice, this is breathing education advice. And so this is what I'm going to work with today, a couple of different exercises and some different thoughts about it all. So we're going to try what I just said. And for me, breathing is an ally. It's a nature. It has its own nature. Our breathing body is a nature itself. So I like to think of breathing as my ally. I want to stay in touch with it. I want to stay intimate with the process of it, connected to my breathing, be aware, be conscious of my breathing, because it's telling me it's delivering some messages about how I'm doing. It tells me when I'm nervous. It tells me when I'm relaxed. It gives me lots of information. It tells me when I'm not feeling well. And since I have some skill, it tells me how to make adjustments to make it feel more nourishing. It means us no harm, even though it can seem like that right now, that we're afraid to breathe, but it doesn't really mean, the process of breathing doesn't mean us any harm. And it is a behavior. We all have habits, and breathing behaviors become habits, and some of them are good, and some of them are not so good. So we want to be intelligent about that. So I am going to just mute everybody to get rid of that background noise. And if you need to speak, just raise your hand. We'll unmute you. I'll do that so we can eliminate the background noise. And so breathing can support self-regulation of our nervous system. When breathing is balanced, when it feels like it's really nourishing, our nervous system can relax. And so we can learn how to self-regulate out of anxiety and out of fear into a quieter place inside of ourselves. So that's what we're going to give some skills with today. So for me, breathing is a sacred gift. I honor it, I treat it tenderly, and I feel like it delivers a lot of grace to me. We never know if we're going to get another breath. No two breaths are alike. At the end of your current exhale, we take it for granted that we will get another breath. We don't know for sure that we will. So that's why I feel like it's sacred and meant to be honored. It touches the inside of us, so it's a way of being comforted, for pleasure, to feel breath moving in a way that feels comfortable, and be in a moment of connection. That is a moment of connection when we are connected to our own breathing process or to our heart rate. And we all breathing the same atmosphere. We all breathing creatures are breathing the same air. We contribute to the air, we make it up, and we are all doing the same thing. So we're going to do a little breathing exploration for 3 minutes right here, right now. And this is something that's, I'm getting my stopwatch out so I can time this. People ask me often, what is the easiest way for me to connect to my breathing? And I know over the years, what has been the feedback has been, when people tell me to pay attention to my breathing or notice my breathing actually gets very disturbed. Because it feels like it's being judged. And being judged means that we're often thinking, am I breathing well? Am I breathing right? Am I breathing in a way that nourishes me? And so that's a hard judgment to put on breathing. And so to take that off, movement is a biological process. It is an essential life process. Everything is always moving in us. We can think about breath being in movement, even if we hold our breath. But our heart is pumping, our blood is moving. There are many, many metabolic processes that are happening in our body that are all moving. So the easiest way for me to introduce breathing to people would be to just follow movement if you can, without wondering whether it's right or wrong. So there are two movements that are happening. You have the movement of the breath itself, and then you have the movement of the body in response to breath. So there's a partnership going on there, and you're adding your awareness to that partnership. So it's a trinity: your awareness, movement of air, and the movement of your body. So let's take 3 minutes just to tune to movement, and then see how what that does for you. What kind of response do you have in your nervous system and in your body to that reality? So Leonardo, we are doing this 3-minute exploration of just following movement, of the movement of air and the movement of your body in response to breath for 3 minutes. This is a way of opening up a meditation. So here we go, 3 minutes. And of course, you're breathing through your nose. On the screen is what we're doing for 3 minutes. Okay, that was 3 minutes. Thank you. I needed that. That work for all of you? Anybody want to say anything for them? Nice quiets down really quickly, right? Takes a little bit of pressure off. Am I doing it right or am I doing it wrong? I'm just following movement, a very basic biological process. It's always there. Easy for us to tap into. Okay, moving along. Susceptibility. I wanted to talk a little bit about susceptibility. And this is not a particularly good conversation, but it's the truth. Even though we're now seeing it reach across all age groups right now. So these articles are coming out more. Air pollution makes the COVID worse for some people. This is what Pennsylvania looks like, a city in Pennsylvania currently, or not currently, a little while ago. So air pollution shows it lowers our ability to fight off infections and to worsen reactions in viruses with people with health challenges like asthma, and it could have pernicious effects in pandemics. So from my viewpoint, most of the world's population is compromised in their lungs due to air pollution. It's an air pollution pandemic is what it is. And virus is part of that pandemic from my viewpoint. 91% of the world's population before the virus did not have clean air to breathe. So people are breathing a huge amount of pollution, as evidenced by the fact that where this started was one of the most polluted cities in the world. And of course, where we see it traveling is to polluted cities all over the world. And what's really worth noting is that 72% of the people, 9 million people, let me put that back in, 9 million people, close to 9 million people, up from 7 million a couple of years ago, die every year from air pollution. Oh, I gotta mute somebody. 9 million people, that's a lot of people. That's more than the virus is gonna kill every year. The virus is just adding to that reality of more people dying from air pollution. And we only know about 9 million people because we do not know who doesn't go to the hospital and dies from air pollution, and how 72% of those people are actually dying from heart attack and stroke, not from lung disease, but it attacks the heart more so than it attacks the lungs, as you can see from these statistics. So I know this number is greater, and the major thing for me is that it's very difficult now for us to trust the air that we breathe. Like I said earlier, we no longer trust the soil, which rose to the organic movement. We drink bottled water because we don't trust the water. And I think it's a real underpinning of our confidence in our lives to know that the air is so unhealthy for us to breathe. And I'm very upset about the fact that our government has lowered all emission standards for the future. We don't know whether that'll ever come back. So we're going to be in more danger than ever before. So we have to be really concerned with ourselves to recognize and take care of our breathing, because air is difficult for us, and feel those underlying feelings of lack of trust, which are there, and the loss of that trust. This was China. This is a while ago. This is a couple of weeks ago picture, but some of you have seen this. Picture on the left is China with air pollution. And picture on the right is what happened when they shut down all the factories and cleaned up the air. So in a matter of a couple of months, we have cleaned up the air in many, 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 many places. It's phenomenal. Somebody told me that we are now on track to reach the Paris Accord clean air standards right now, rather than waiting until 2030. It's like the virus, for me, the virus has an intelligence. It's here we go. Let's just do what needs to get done here in this world to clean up and change the environmental conditions. And we have to use our own body intelligence here to know how to work with the air pollution. So that's what we're doing now. So nose breathing is essential. Oh, I thought I changed that to 3 reasons. All right. So you breathe through your mouth as often as you eat through your nose. That's the way to remember that. The simple thing to say about that, and I'll go through more detail about it later, is the nose filters. You breathe through your mouth, you take everything into your lungs directly through your mouth. It goes right into the lungs. And through the nose, at least it goes through some metabolic processes to help condition that air for the lungs. And you pace your activity level, especially now, so that you can use your nose for breathing during all activity, so that you don't have to, if you're going too fast and you find yourself mouth breathing, just slow down your activity level, check in with your movement of your breath, feel what that pace is like, and then make your external movement in sync and coherence with that kind of internal movement of your breathing. And I'm finding it's really essential when I'm outside. When I'm in the grocery store, it's unforgiving to use my mouth for breathing there. And most times in my classes, people come up with, what about when I'm exercising? So I just wanted to show these 2 pictures of the woman on the left is the fastest woman in the world at a 1/4 mile. She has practiced and studied Buteyko with a coach, with a teacher, and she ran that whole 1/4 mile, nice and quiet, nice and calm, pacing herself for her nose breathing, kept her mouth closed, picked up a gold medal. Can be done. And then the person on the right is a swimmer, phenomenal ability to be able to nose breathe while swimming. So can be done, no excuses. Most people I train figure it out in about 2 or 3 days. All right, so step one in taking care of your breathing is to have a supportive posture to reduce airway resistance. And this is what it looks like. It's called the horse rider position in Buteyko, where you're sitting pretty much on the edge of your chair. If you can, if your back can tolerate it, if not, put a pillow behind you, but at least keep your chest from collapsing into your stomach. You want to keep the spine erect. And if you're on your back, you want to keep your knees up. That's the picture for that. If you lie flat on your back, a couple of things happen that are dangerous or limiting, let's put it that way. One is that your belly viscera moves up towards your diaphragm, and you can lose 40% of your lung function because the diaphragm can't open as much because of all your belly and the liver. So putting your knees up moves all that viscera down to your pelvis and frees up the diaphragm. And lying on your back, especially if you're older, and especially when sleeping, the tongue can drop back into the airway and the jaw can drop back, and it can narrow the airway, causing some sleep apnea. So that's the position, the horse rider position, for just doing some simple breathing exercises to maximize the potential for air moving in and out. The tongue is a very important process in this that we're learning more about from oral facial myofunction. And the tongue should be at the roof of the mouth, not down lower. The lips are slightly touching along with the teeth, and they're resting on each other, and it completes the air respiratory circuit and opens the airway in the throat and lungs. So I'm going to show you another picture. This is the tongue here, and this is the upper palate, or the roof of the mouth and the floor of the nose, and the tongue is nicely hugging all the way from front to back. Not easy if you haven't done this as a child. And the teeth are just lightly touching from back to front. And the important part here is to look at how this airway, and this is an illustration, obviously, it's, we got about a ½ an inch space here. And when we look at the next picture where the tongue is not here, but down lower, we see that the airspace has narrowed to less than a1/4 inch. And so I think it's worthwhile just for a moment for everybody to kind of see. If you want to feel how your tongue feels at the back of your teeth, if you're not used to having it back there, and getting some proprioception in the rear part of your tongue, is to say the syllable ack, A-C-K. Just say ack, ack, and you can feel the tongue lift to the back of the teeth. So then you want to rest your tongue. There's ridges behind your teeth. You want to put the tip of that tongue at the first ridge behind the upper teeth, and then curl the tongue if you can, not like pointed like this, but curled. And just breathe for a moment. Take a 3, 4, 5 breaths that way. Kind of notice a little bit about the airway space, how air travels through you. Feel a sense of that respiratory connection and how it connects you to a sort of the energetic field of your whole torso. In Taoist work, it's called the microcosmic circuit. And then drop the tongue down. Feel into your sense of connection to that microcosmic circuit and whether or not the airway space stays as open. The effort changes, and then lift that tongue again. So it's important. I just read a really wonderful new book by Sandra Kahn called Jaws. And she has another pandemic, which is the malocclusion of teeth that have come from people mouth breathing and misalignment of the tongue. Very important book, and lots of good pictures to show the distortion that happens in children's faces. It's really difficult as an adult to train yourself to do that. She recommends it's hard to pay attention for at least 4 to 8 hours of that, so that you're retraining your body to remember to keep the tongue up there. Does anybody want to say anything that they noticed about that? Yeah, Scott. Can you unmute yourself, Scott, please?
I noticed the difference between the breathing pattern when your tongue is up and when your tongue is down. The thing that I've been working with as a meditator and as a teacher is the tongue in the bottom position helps get us out of monkey mind. So it's a helpful technique, but it's interesting to see how that works physiologically with the body.
You say when the tongue is down, it gets you out of the monkey mind?
Yeah.
Huh.
So when the tongue is down, we're not ready to speak. So it keeps the brain from going into that, the chattery mind.
Interesting. I find it the other way around.
Yeah.
So.
Right. So yeah, I've been doing the Taoist practice for a long time, so I'm aware of that. And I find as a meditator, I just put my tongue down, and that just the brain. I have a freedom from monkey mind.
Okay. Well, for our purposes here, we want more airway space.
Yeah.
Well, great. Thanks, Scott. Good to know. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay. So increasing airway and lung space. So I just wanted to show this picture on the left of their arms are up, but this is the lungs. So just not everybody gets a good sense of the size of the lungs and how they can be above the clavicle. They start way a little bit above here, up in here, and go all the way down in the front to right under the front ribs, but the back ribs are lower. And so we see that in the back, they go down deeper, and that's where they open up for some residual air. And so we want to get an idea that there's a lot of space in there. The alveoli that are in there are 300 million alveoli, which are the air sacs. If they were cut open, they would be the size of a football field, laid out side to side. A lot of space in there. And I'm saying this picture particularly, and these are the picture of the airways. These are real airways. These are not the kind of airways you see where they look like dead branches. These are a live person's airways. So you can see, for me, they look very movable. They look like they have life to them. But somebody on a call yesterday was talking about they had the virus and were feeling daggers in their chest when they had the trouble breathing in a really heavy chest. And they, from some instructions that I had given them earlier, really put their attention in breathing in the back of their body where there is a little more lungs. And that gave them some relief and some space to find more air when they were feeling so compressed in their chest. So take that into advice here. You may want to, so, breathing is a really wonderful thing in that it really is compliant to awareness. So breath follows awareness. So being aware of an area of your body, like the back of your body right now, in the back of your lungs, you just bring that into your awareness and breathe. You may find that you find movement there that you may not have noticed before, because when you put your awareness someplace, like I said, breath will follow awareness. And right away, you're in the back of your body for breathing. Hopefully that's true for all of you. Just nod your head if it is. Good. All right. So tuning your body to heart, body, and mind. So here's an exercise. Here's a little practice that really has been very profound for most people. And I want to do it with you here so you can see that. I picked this up from Swami Rama, who wrote a book called The Science of Breathing, and it was also in the Radiant Sutras, which were a translation from 5,000 years ago. And it's the use of the syllable sa and ha, sa on the inhale and ha on the exhale. And so I just want to make a little comment here that some of you who have done yoga have done alternate nostril breathing, which is a very big yoga practice, which people feel more balanced. And why that works so well is when we breathe through the right nostril, it tunes the electricity in the left hemisphere of the brain. And when you breathe through the left, it tunes the electrical hemisphere in the right side of the brain. So it's switching back and forth in alternate nostril breathing. We ourselves switch which nostril is dominant every 20 to 90 minutes. And I think that's important to know because people often feel they have a stuffed nose if they can't breathe through both nostrils fully. And yet that really is a function of the respiratory system to help regulate brain electricity. What's also true, which we don't hear very much about, is that this picture of this man's nose, also a live nose, a real person's nose alive, is we get to see the turbinates here. And these turbinates create three different holes, the inferior hole here, the one in the middle here, and the one in the middle here. And so, I trust the yoga's explorations over the 5,000 years that they've been examining and meditating around breath. And each hole corresponds to another part of the brain. The lower hole corresponds to the reptilian in the brainstem. The middle hole corresponds to the heart, the limbic system, and the upper hole corresponds to the cognitive brain and your bliss point. So mostly what happens is that we often have a habit of breathing through one or the other hole, not necessarily all three of them. And we know some of this is true by the fact that when somebody gets angry and they flare their nostrils, they're breathing through that lower hole to really activate and fire up their instinctual and reptilian response. But when we do sa and ha, we actually take the energy of us breathing. So in other words, normally when we breathe, we think about we breathe air in, we pull it in, we push it out. We want to return the breathing to our lungs. We want our body to breathe us. And when our body breathes us, it knows exactly what it needs in any given time if we allow it. And doing sa-ha also allows the breath to come into all three of those holes before the exhale is complete, and then leave those through those three holes on the exhale. So before the inhale is complete and then the exhale. So let's try that together. So let's start the first one. As you breathe in, we want to see, just breathe in normally. Let's do it this way. Let's just breathe in normally, however you have a habit of breathing, and just feel your chest. And while you may feel air going in there, feel the musculature if you can. And just feel, does it feel like it's relaxing or it's getting tighter? And then when you breathe in, breathe with sa. And what you're doing with sa is you're thinking sa all the way through the inhale, which means that you actually are hearing it. And so when you do that, you want to notice what happens inside of you. Does the air flow more easily, and do the chest and body open up more for lungs with more relaxation around them? And do you feel more of your rib basket and back being engaged when you say sa and ha on the way in and out? Or when you think it, excuse me. So do the best you can to let that exhale complete itself before you feel the impulse for another breath, and then think sa on the way in. And you're noticing movement again. You had your baseline earlier. You're noticing the difference in the movement now. All right, how's that working for everybody? You like that? Can you feel how the body sort of is taking over the breathing for you? Nancy, do you want to say something?
Thanks. I can tell my lungs are filling up more sideways.
Mm-hmm.
I was very aware easily that my back was filling up more when I was paying attention to it. But when we were doing the sa, I noticed that I could feel the sideways expansion.
It's great, because that's really important. That really opens up the lungs. It pulls them wider so more air can be drawn into the lungs without us efforting so much. Great. Anybody else? Yeah, Ava.
So I'm noticing that my sort of mid-back body is feeling like there's action happening there, which is not typical when I just normally breathe. It's like it's growing, expanding, or something, and my muscles aren't used to it, or my body isn't necessarily used to that. So I imagine that there's a little bit of a sort of acquainting the body with this new way of breathing.
Yeah, so I practice it all the time. It immediately moves me out of, speaking of what Scott spoke earlier, out of my mind. It's like, whoa, now my body's breathing. I'm out of the picture. You know, my idea about how I should breathe is out of the picture. My body's just, my lungs are doing it. And what I often find is that with my mouth closed, my teeth together, and my body just opens up more. I get more air that way, just much more easily. And I notice that in my swimming when I do it in that way in my swimming as well. So, like I gotta say, I like that I give my lungs the command of how to breathe me rather than me breathing from my habits. Yeah, great. Anybody else? Bonnie.
Yeah, so I felt like oh, I'm getting a big echo here. Do you hear me?
Too. Somebody else I'm going to mute somebody else here. Somebody else got unmuted. Go ahead.
I immediately felt like my lung capacity increased by about a third, and it was global. I felt it front, back, sideways, and then I decided to switch them and do ha on the inhale and sa on the exhale, and that definitely didn't feel right. But then I decided to drop the S and the H, and I just inhaled and exhaled on ah.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm looking forward to playing with this because I felt like just doing ah on the inhale and the exhale was a great improvement. It was interesting. I'm looking forward to playing with this. Thank you for that.
Please report in.
I will.
It reminds me. It reminds me to say that at a practice of this, I no longer need to say sa and ha. I just automatically let my body intelligence make the switch, just from intention. So the practice of it really teaches me how to. Oh, great! And it brings me down in my body and out of my chest, and it lowers any anxiety that I've got going on in the moment. Great. So, you know, it's an interesting thing to me. I picked this up maybe 10 or 15 years ago, and I've been teaching it. It's like I have one thing. I should just call myself a Saha teacher, because everybody just loves this and finds such benefit from it. So, okay, moving along. Unless anybody else has something to say. So, staying calm and maintaining nourishing breathing habits. So, this is just for your edification and your intelligence. Wanted to see what happens to your nervous system when you use your mouth for breathing. So just for 2 or 3 breaths, breathe through your nose, breathe sa and ha, and just track both effort, volume, if you will, and how are you in your nervous system when you do this? Relaxed down at the 0 scale, anxious up at the 10 scale. And then just open your mouth to breathe a couple of breaths and just what happens where it moves. If you put your hand on your chest and your belly, where you're breathing from when you open your mouth. And most importantly, what happens to your nervous system. I'm going to take that as you don't like mouth breathing, Bonnie. Yeah, so without a whole lot of comment about it, if a bear came through your front door right now, the biggest breath you would take would be, oh my God, and you'd be in fight or flight immediately. Your heart would be heart would be racing. You would narrow your vision so you're not in any periphery of belonging. You may get pale, blood leaves the surface of the skin. You might start to sweat to cool the body, but also importantly, at the level of organs, your digestive system is going to turn off, because you don't need to be digesting when you're in fight or flight. And your immune system in a prolonged anxiety attack is going to be overactive. It's going to try to clear out what doesn't belong, but it's going to lose its ability to be able to distinguish between healthy and not healthy tissue. And so an overactive immune system produces a tremendous amount of debris. And so with COVID-19 producing debris, we really want to stay out of our anxiety. So we really have to be careful about using our mouth for breathing at all times. I have asthmatic patients who just go around taping their mouth the whole time they go out and keep until they get really practiced at nose breathing. So you can sense that, can't you, that the mouth breathing is not something that feels really comfortable. Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. So we just did that. And nose breathing tends to settle the nervous system, tends to balance the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So here's a myth of deep breathing. so that we can, anytime you see this, two things you want to be careful for. Anybody who gives you instructions that tells you to empty your lungs, you know right there and then that they don't have a full education about breathing. It kind of annoys me because you can never empty your lungs. You are always keeping residual air in your lungs, otherwise your lungs would be collapsed, so you cannot. You can finish your exhale, that's for sure. But generally, the deep breathing is telling somebody to take a deep breath in, whether it's through the nose and the mouth, and blow it out, a big breath out. Well, what regulates our distribution of oxygen is carbon dioxide. So every time you take a big breath out, you reduce the natural elimination of carbon dioxide above and beyond what the body is wanting to let go of. And so every decrease of carbon dioxide by 1% is a 2% decrease of oxygen flow. Three big deep breaths like that, like I just described, will cause a 14% decrease in the flow of oxygen. And so we know this, right? When people are hyperventilating because they're going to get on the stage, they're going to sing, they're going to talk, and they hyperventilate and they're almost going to faint. And then we know the folk remedy for that is a paper bag and breathing into a paper bag, which means they're breathing back their own carbon dioxide. Oxygen starts to flow again to the brain, and that fainting spell starts to dissipate. So we have to be really careful about that. So this was discovered in 1885 by a scientist. Over the oxygen supply of the body, carbon dioxide spreads its protective wings. In other words, what I just said, and you can read more about this, is that carbon dioxide is a byproduct of respiration. Ironically, when we use oxygen in our respiratory system, one of the byproducts in healthy respiration is carbon dioxide and water. That carbon dioxide is used to regulate the pH of our blood, which puts the blood in the right condition to let oxygen flow through it. We breathe out through our nose. 2/3 of the load that is being released by our respiratory system stays in our sinuses. And so when we breathe back, we are breathing back our own carbon dioxide, which is pretty useful because there's only 0.03% in the atmosphere, and our lungs need to maintain a 5.5 to 6.5% of the gases in the lungs need to be carbon dioxide. So breathing back our own helps us maintain it. And in a more esoteric realm, Rudolf Steiner said that carbon has the highest spiritual energy of any atom in the universe, and that oxygen is very attracted to that spiritual energy, which is why it comes to the body and why we are carbon-based to bring oxygen to us. Okay, just a little esoteric knowledge there. So nose clearing exercise. This is, very nice that we tell everybody to breathe through the nose, but what if your nose is stuffed? So this is a nose clearing exercise. So I'm going to walk you through it. You breathe through, you start to get this is only if your neck is in good shape. You can do an alternative, which I will show you. But you start to breathe in when you raise your head, you breathe out, you breathe in, you breathe out. I'm doing it a little quickly, but then with clean hands, washed, you pinch your nostrils and you bob your head for 3 to 6 times. And then you keep your mouth closed and you breathe as gently as you possibly can through your nose, like you're breathing a rose, smelling a rose. And you repeat as often as possible. You can do it until you feel slight urge to breathe, so that when you let go of your nose, you don't do this. But if you have any compromising lung condition or heart condition, you don't want to hold your breath for longer than 6 seconds. And especially if you do have the virus, you want to just be 3 to 6 seconds or head bobs. If your neck is compromised, then you can just stamp your feet and move your feet, or you can walk back and forth. Either way, you're just wanting to increase body movement, which means an increase in carbon dioxide. And what we're wanting to do is the epithelial tissue, the little goblet cells that are in the nose that secrete mucus, have also the ability to absorb it. So when we do this kind of activity and the carbon dioxide levels rise, and we're sending a signal with a very gentle breath that we're taking care of our nose, we're not over breathing, those epithelial cells can absorb the mucus and clear the nostrils. I've had it happen many times, and many clients have felt that way. So it's a really good way of keeping your nose open if blowing it doesn't do the job. Okay? And this will be in your slides, and you'll have this for yourself. Now, I know coughing is a big deal with COVID. So if you feel like you're about to cough, if you can, I understand that people who have COVID, it just can't. They're just coughing all the time. But just if you can get some agency over your coughing, you want to put your hand over your mouth, and so you don't breathe through your mouth. Swallow a couple of times and breathe gently through your nose. Hold your breath for a few seconds. Breathe in and out slowly for 30 seconds. Hand over your mouth. Tell yourself you're not going to cough, and take a smooth, normal breath through your nose. And if you have to repeat it, repeat it. Some people say take a drink of water, but really what you're wanting to do is just soothe your nervous system through nose breathing, if you can. Okay. So talking with breath awareness. So I said before that mouth breathing increases your potential for anxiety. So when most of us are talking, when we run out of air, we tend to take a breath in through our mouths. And so right away, you are drying your airways out. You are escalating that little bit of anxiety that may be in the system. So the idea of pacing yourself so you can breathe through your nose all the time means the same thing with talking. That when you run out of air, you close your mouth and you breathe through your nose. And not just breathe like taking a quick breath to get enough to keep talking quickly, but to actually use the sa and the sa at that moment. So you feel like, yes, I got enough air. My lungs feel satisfied that they got what I needed. And then I can come back and finish the conversation. So I like this as a balance in how much attention I pay to the people I'm talking to and how much attention I pay to myself. So when I breathe back in through my nose and I bring my awareness into the movement of my own breath, I'm actually with me in that moment. And then when I come back and talk to you, I'm actually with you in that moment. So I'm giving you a rest from hearing from me while I give myself a rest to breathe. It's a much calmer way to have a conversation. So I'm continuing to try to practice that while I talk to you now. But this is a great one to learn how to do. And one way to practice it is to read aloud. There are periods and commas, and those can be breathing breaks. And if you give yourself the sense to complete the inhale and really feel like that is a completed inhale, I'm satisfied. When I come back out, I'm coming back from a completion to a brand new moment. So it's not like I lost a sentence in midstream and not disconnected. What I'm saying now is brand new, even when I read. So I take that, make it in the moment. Okay? Worth practicing. Save you a lot of anxiety when talking. So here's that picture of that wonderful man who's volunteered to have his live body X-rayed, MRI'd, and CAT scanned so that the software could bring this together. But this is a really old picture on the bottom from a book called Behold. I think it's Behold Man. It's probably 50 years old now. And they did the experiment of showing how air travels down the airways from having been spiraled by the nose. It has a little bit of smoke in it. That's how we can see it. But that's how air travels in the body. And that's why when we breathe and are quiet, we may feel rocked. We may feel moved when we're breathing because breath is moving us in a spiral way. And it's comforting. So I had a little bit more information about the nose. The nose is the guardian of the lungs. That's my saying. I coined that saying. I don't know where it came from, but I think Breath said to me, say this. So the nose filters 0.5 microns, pretty small, not small enough to filter smoke and not small enough to filter virus. But a human hair is 50 microns, so it's pretty tiny particles. So a lot of that air pollution cannot reach your lungs if you use your nose for breathing, those particles that are in the air. It regulates the temperature of the air to the lungs. The lungs like body temperature air. So it's too hot or too cold. As the air travels through, the blood or in the nose and in the sinuses will either dump heat onto the air or absorb some of the heat. That's how blood regulates body temperature. It regulates the humidity of the air by adding from the mucous membrane moisture or withdrawing moisture. And it produces antibacterial molecules. So bacteria that comes in through the nose has a chance of being neutralized. And one thing we know right now, and I've got an article, I've got something here, later we'll play with it. It can produce the nitric oxide that gets produced in the nose by 15-fold times. Nitric oxide, and I have references here, has been shown to kill viruses. So it has been used in the past with SARS and MERS to show that it has antiviral effects. And so we want that in our bodies to be, perhaps, we don't know yet, to ameliorate the effects of this virus, but it's important for us to use it anyway. And I think nose breathing gives the body a chance to get presented whatever comes into it, so it can mount a protection for it. If it goes right through the mouth, it's already in the lungs. So we want to be very careful with that. So like I said earlier, it supports the delivery of oxygen. It supports all immune functioning, and it helps self-regulate the autonomic nervous system between sympathetic and parasympathetic. So here's another piece, and we'll do 3 minutes of this. Nose breathing and 20 minutes of humming increases the production of delivery of nitric oxide for up to 15 times. And it's, like I said, it shows antiviral effects. And there is your link to an article in the American Society of Microbiology about nitric oxide. So you can follow that when you get the slides and read that article. So you want to have some science behind it. So we're going to hum together. All right. So you're going to breathe through your nose quietly. And the way you hum is a very specific thing you have to do really carefully. So when I hum, when I finish humming, just like when I'm talking, I'm going to take the time to breathe back slowly so that I'm ready to make that hum again. Not hum and grab it for another one and grab for another one, but really find a rhythm of your humming. All right. So let's just play with that so we all get that implanted into our kinesthetic reality. Hold on, question? Yeah, Nancy, sure.
I noticed you can hum from different places. You can hum from your nose or in your throat. Do you have an idea of where we're?
It's a great question,
doing
Nancy.
that?
It's a great question. And one of the things we know about humming and sound is that it helps loosen and de-densify tissue. And so with awareness breath following awareness, you want to be a little more conscious about your humming, like you're suggesting, and noticing where you feel the vibration of your hum. And then when you breathe in, keep that vibration in that area of sensation that got awakened from the vibration, keep it in your awareness and breathe. You think, oh, that's now moving with breath. And then you hum again and say, well, let me try humming in my throat. And then I breathe back. Oh, wow, my throat's opening up with breath. So you can use humming also to place it in places that you'd like to feel more movement. And sometimes you may want to know where you feel more movement by where sensation is calling you. If you have, while you're inhaling or while you're exhaling, and another sensation lights up in your body and you think, wow, that's an interesting sensation I'm having in my shoulder. Great. Keep that sensation in your awareness when you breathe back, and you'll feel movement in your shoulder. So you can use it to awaken the body to breathe fully everywhere through humming. Serve a second purpose. Yeah, Teresa. Okay, Nancy? Teresa, you got a question?
Well, I just have a comment. Would that be similar to like playing a kazoo or something like that? Is that a humming? My husband plays the kazoo a lot.
Yeah, I can't remember kazoo. Does it make the sound on the inhale or the exhale?
I'm gonna ask. I'm gonna have him check it out with him. But
Anybody know? Yeah, but you know, the kazoo's got a lot of vibration, so
yeah.
I'm imagining.
It's amazing at kazoo players.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Hum. The kazoo goes on the hum.
On the what, Gail? On the inhale or the exhale?
Playing a kazoo, you're you're exhaling. You're humming into the kazoo.
Great. All right. Thanks, Gail. There we have it. Everybody go out and get a kazoo. That's great. All right. Let's just
Or a
hum.
didgeridoo.
Huh?
Or a didgeridoo.
Yes, a didgeridoo is just as good, for sure. All right, just 3 minutes together. I'll turn everybody off, including myself, and we'll just hum for 3 minutes. I'll stop the watch. Just start. Okay. I didn't want to come back. That was delightful. Any comments, thoughts? Leonardo, you want to say something? Nope.
Robert,
Yeah.
It looks like I had my microphone mute a moment ago, but I wanted to remark on the NAHA reading that it's amazing how that works as focusing in your inhale and exhale process, and that now with this NAHA, it's just like isolating those movements, those actions, and that really quiets immediately your minds and your thoughts. I have been using that for the past, I would say, 5 years as a conscientious breathing. And it's amazing how that puts away all that anxiety that we create unnecessarily through all the busy mind that we sometimes have. Also, I wanted to tell you that after many years of practicing body works, in certain techniques, in certain modalities that requires a very good deep connection with the person you're working with, it's been coming for years. That humming comes naturally. The more focused, the more deep into my work I am, that humming comes naturally for me, a subtle humming.
Great. It's, you know, it's sort of like an expression of the internal pleasure you're having.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because for me, the issue of breathing and having that kind of deep connection to it, and like you say, slowing it down, is a moment of intimacy. And so intimacy, whether with another person or with myself, quiets all the mind and all the other conversations. It opens my heart and relaxes me and brings me pleasure to be intimate. And so that's one of the things that I think is really important right now, is that we can maintain our intimacy with ourselves. Because we all know, or we have heard, or if you haven't, how you are with yourself is how you are with others. So if you're intimate in your own experience, you at least know how to be intimate with others, whether you're scared of it or not, but nonetheless, you have a sense of intimacy. So thanks for that. Thanks for bringing that forward, Leonardo. Appreciate it. Okay. So since we talked about breathing being a habit, we want to see what our habits are for mouth breathing. And so the best thing you can do to break a habit is to become aware of it. And if we really value that mouth breathing is not a good habit, making a list of when you noticed you used your mouth for breathing is a good way to start. Because when you write it down and then you go to do that thing the next time, that activity, the next time, you go, wait a minute, this is the moment that I usually use my mouth for breathing. Let me consciously not do that. Lolly's raising her hand, and I'll get to you in a second, Lolly. I just want to say that two of the places that really showed up for me really fast was when I got out of my car. Did a great job nose breathing when I was driving, and then I go to open the door and I mouth breathe. I don't know why I did that, but I did that. And the other one was going to the mailbox. I had a real fear of the mailbox. Unexpected. And I wasn't the only one. I have had clients who've said the same thing. So just, common places are taking a shower, eating, drinking, talking, exercising. Those are some of them. But there are definitely going to be places that are not so, that might surprise you. So make a list. Okay, Lolly, I'm unmuting you. I was trying to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself, Lolly? You raised your hand. There you go.
Yes. Just a brief word to say that I'm impressed at how the quality of your voice changed after the 3 minutes of humming.
No kidding, right? Thanks for noticing that. I noticed it also.
I mean, beautiful. I was far away from the computer, so it took me a little while to raise my hand. But yeah, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I drop more deeply into myself. So coming more from a more deeper place inside of myself. Thank you, Lolly. Yeah, that's why I didn't want to come back. Okay, so so this is another simple way that I try to teach people, is that the exhale. There's two things happen. First of all, let me back it up a little bit. Gravity has two forces. One that pulls us down towards the earth, keeps us in place, keeps us tethered to the earth. And the other one is lift, that it also has energy to lift things up and lift us up. That's how salmon get upstream, by the way. They know how to pay attention to the force of the uplift, so they grab a hold of it and jump up those big waterfalls to get back to their spawning grounds. So we can call the lift buoyancy. We feel more buoyant when we have more air in ourselves, like a balloon does. And when we're more buoyant, I think we feel a little bit more spacious. When we are exhaling and we are letting the air leave us without our effort, we are less buoyant and we get heavier. We get the sense of feeling a little heavier. And that heaviness is moving towards gravity. So when we breathe in and out, we can pay attention to those two forces. And the part that I really like about this is that when I am exhaling and I allow my exhale to complete itself, and I feel that weightedness, that I'm more conscious of the support that's underneath me, like the chair that I'm sitting on right now, the floor that's holding my feet. And so I can also interpret that as I let go of some tensions during the exhale and receiving the support of the earth. I'm resting a little bit more. I'm not holding myself away from the natural force of gravity. Like every basketball player knows, to make a jump shot, you got to go down and go up. So I'm resting. So if I keep in my awareness the support that I receive when I finish my exhale and keep that in my awareness, my breathing in my inhale is going to arrive from a rested place, from a supported place. And so I don't have to lift up. I don't have to try to get more air in. It just arises from rest. And so the other way of speaking to it is I'm picking up my inhale from where I left off in my exhale at the physical level. So I feel myself filling from lower down. It helps me open up the lower part of me for breathing. So just try that for a few moments here of following that exhale into support. And you may notice when you follow it into support that parts of you that are holding tension can soften a little bit because there's something underneath you that's holding you. And the thing to notice is that when you do find a shoulder dropping or a hand relaxing or your feet softening, you want to take immediate notice of the next inhale and see that you probably have more movement in your body, easier to fill, and the more of your body is breathing in movement. So letting your body receiving support is like completing the gesture of your exhale. So remember, your tongue is at the roof of your mouth. You can help your ribs and breathe easier by letting your teeth and jaw be in the right position, letting your eyes soften. And you may feel your heart rate. The quieter you get, you may start to feel your heartbeat. And that's a nice adjunct to put in another biological process. So as you breathe, you can also breathe with the awareness of the beating of your heart. So you're kind of weaving a few things together here. We could do this for three minutes here. Keep a good sense of curiosity. And recognize you're breathing with awareness. You're not breathing into anything. You're not making an effort to make something happen. You're breathing with whatever shows up, whether it's sensations, images, feelings, emotions. Just breathe with them in your awareness. And you breathe with something in awareness, movement happens. And movement is nourishment. You're grounding yourself. Okay. That was just a little 3 minutes. So how did that work for you? Anybody? Gail?
Hi, it's Gail. Yes, hi. You know, it's amazing how you can practice and have these awarenesses, and there's always new territory. There's always something. And I'm coupling this period of social isolation and the teaching of it with today's breathing exploration. And the insight that is coming is not so much about where I mouth breathe, but how I hurry things and I hurry transitions. And what is so interesting about this particular time is I'm not in a hurry for anything. I've gotten very few transitions happening from one thing to another. You know, no clients, no classes, no get to appointments. And so how this translates into my breathing, and the part about the gravity and the exhale is the teacher in this, but the habit pattern is to draw air overly upward too fast through my nose. So it's still nose breathing, but it's a pulling, a sucking, a rushing into the next. And this last phase, this last exploration was just the place where it came together for me. It's like, oh yeah, no rush here.
Thanks, Gail. Yes, those transitions from inhale to exhale into inhale, they're all transitions. And actually the whole phenomenon of breathing, the whole breath is all transitions.
Robert?
Yeah, Leonardo.
For a long time, breathing, it's been a practical way of driving energy, moving energy. And now comes to my mind, in my practice of Tai Chi, you are constantly inhaling, exhaling with the yin and yang. I have been exhaling through my mouth. So with this practice, I will try from this afternoon on to try to do both movements through my nose. So inhale and exhale through my nose, keeping the awareness of the direction of the energy, even I am not using my mouth. So I will try that from today on to see how.
Write me and let me know.
And quick question, what is the effect for those people who trim their nose hair in the process of natural breathing?
Well, it certainly limits the filtration.
Yeah. Mechanical filtration.
Yes. Yeah, and I do want to say that, you know, sometimes people mouth breathe to dissipate energy also, you know, to blow off energy. And sometimes that's important, you know, especially if you're frightened. Great. So I did make this mention of this, and I just want to go through it again. I really, you've already seen this, but I really stress this idea of breathing with whatever shows up in awareness, because breath is life. And if we breathe with the awareness of what has shown up for our attention, we give what shows up life, so we can see it better, we can feel it better. But when I'm told to breathe into something, it's almost like I don't understand. And most people say, I don't really understand how to do that. But if I switch it over to the language, is to breathe with what I notice. I'm feeling a pain in my back. Well, breathe with it and see what happens. So there's a curiosity to it, and rather than trying to make something happen. I'm told that if I breathe into it, it's going to be better. If I breathe with it, we'll see. And generally, what you steadily or not, if I breathe with it, it generates energy and movement. And so whatever I'm feeling that I have an opinion that it's stuck, if I start to feel it move with breath, that opinion about it may change, and I may have a different sense that things are not permanent. Everything comes and goes, like the breath. Breath is a template to realize nothing stays the same. Everything's always changing, and no two breaths are alike. And we don't know if we're going to get another breath after the last one. So in my Buteyko practice, what we do with people is have them breathe like this. These things that I've given you as a tip for 5 to 10 minutes at a time for an hour a day. And basically, it's both to bring in new habits, which will help balance your respiratory physiology and its gases and its ability to distribute oxygen, as well as it'll start to highlight what pleases you and what doesn't please you. So when you're doing the breathing exercises, and if you find pleasure in them, you know breathing can be pleasurable, and then you find yourself, like Gail mentioned, hurrying. You go, wait a minute, this is not good for me. I don't like it. It upsets my system. You can make the switch because you've practiced enough to know how to make that switch. So we get good at, it may not be there all the time. I tell this parable that I got from Ram Dass, about a 92-year-old Aikido master who always won. No matter how young the students were and how good they were, the 92-year-old man always won. So they decided one night that they would wait for him in the toilet when he gets up to pee in the middle of the night, and they would jump him when he gets up to pee. So they did that. They jumped him, and he won. And the parable goes, well, master, how is it you're on center all the time? And he says, I'm not on center all the time. I just know how to get there really quickly. And so that's what we're practicing now, just learning how to reestablish and reconnect to our own respiration and the intimacy of it in one breath, which will reset and help us self-regulate. So practice. And you see taping your mouth at night, and this is paper tape for people who mouth breathe at night. And this is hypoallergenic paper tape made by 3M. I'm just giving you a little instruction. The most important thing you want to do with this paper tape is bend over a piece at the end so there's no stickiness here. And when you want to wash your hands, you want to take off some of the adhesive. And then you can wear it in one of 4 ways. You can start with the small piece here to remind your body to breathe through its nose to sleep. You can graduate a piece here and another piece here. But eventually what you want to do, and if it bothers you at night, if the carbon dioxide pressure starts to build in your tube, you feel a little suffocated, you will reach for it in the middle of the night and take it off, and it'll be in your hair in the morning, or it'll be wrapped around your finger in the morning. And that is the most common place people find it. And if it feels a little sketchy to you, then do it during the day. Try it while you're reading, while you're watching television, while you're washing the dishes, to see how it feels. Get used to it. But you don't want to be mouth breathing all night long, drying you out and keeping you in an anxious state during the night. This is a very important exercise. It's Buteyko, and it's a very useful one for both recovery and for prevention when you're not feeling well. It's called the mini pause. And it says here to do this exercise for 10 to 15 minutes before going to sleep to reduce nasal congestion and to boost your immune system. And then at the bottom, if you're feeling ill, you want to do it 100 times in an hour and three times a day. So you're doing 300 in a day. You can use toothpicks to count them. And so what you're basically doing is really simple. You're having a little breath hold. You breathe in through your nose if you can, in, out, and you just hold your breath for 3 to 5 seconds. And so it builds up a little bit more CO2 in a minute. And that CO2, more oxygen distribution, that's why you do it 100 times in an hour. You're really flooding your system with oxygen that way. But over the years in my practice, And for myself, what I noticed is that when I sneeze and when I cough or when I yawn or when I sigh, my energy comes up. Coughing, sneezing, they're all energy coming up this way, which is important. It gets things out of our body. But if I do a lot of it, all of a sudden I'm living up here. And so I start to breathe up here. And that's what I don't want. I want to bring that breathing back down to my diaphragm, down to my lower dantian. And so if I hold, breathe in, breathe out after I've coughed or sneezed, hold for 3 to 5 seconds, or hum, I'll notice that I'm breathing back down my lower body. And so it's really a really good exercise, both for recovery and prevention. All right, so I'm sure you all tried it while I said that, so keep that in mind. And just a little comment about anxiety. You know, I said it earlier, it reduces digestion, rapid heart rate, and sweating, cooling. Obsessive thoughts. Obsessive thoughts are not an indication that something's wrong with you. It's an indication perhaps that you're breathing incorrectly and your brain is sending up anxiety, and those anxiety is translated into obsessive thoughts. You're not going to be able to solve your obsessive thoughts from the place of obsessive thoughts. You need to self-regulate the nervous system and come back down. So, and the detrimental effects, I mean, Hans Selye said it in the 30s, the general adaptation syndrome, constant distress will destroy the body, will cause a general adaptation and failure throughout the body. So you want to stay out of prolonged anxiety, have to. And this time right now, real easy to be in constant anxiety. We've got to find some relief from it throughout the day to realize it's not a permanent state. Okay, this is another recovery exercise that you can do if you're feeling anxious. It's called a hyperventilation exercise for anxiety and asthma. This is one you can do for yourself if you're feeling anxious. Just, you know, if you don't have a stopwatch, just do 1 1,000, 2 1,000. But this was an exercise designed to help people other than yourself as well. So if you see somebody having anxiety or you see somebody having asthma and you want to help them out, you can tell them to do this. And basically what you're doing is you're breathing in for 2 seconds, out for 3 seconds, and then you're pausing for 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds, 5, 6, and then back from 5 to 5, 4, 3, 2. It must come back. If you're having asthma, you go beyond 6, you go up to 7 to 10, as far as you can go, and then back from there, so that you are building up, again, more oxygenation through increasing your CO2 levels. So let me just walk you through this. We'll do the 1 up to 6. It takes 81 seconds. I have stopped people's panic attacks in 81 seconds. So let's just try it. If it might be too fast for you right now, because most of you are relaxed and easy, this is meant to be done after you're, you know, overly activated, run upstairs or something like that. So let's try that. All right. So just follow my instructions. I'll say breathe in, breathe out, and suspend. And I'll count the numbers of suspension so you know when we're getting towards 6 and back. All right. Willie, here we go. Take a breath in. Take a breath out. Suspend. 1, 2. Breath in. Breath out. Suspend. 1, 2, 3. Breath in. Breath out. Suspend. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breath in. Breath out. Suspend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breath in. Breath out. Suspend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Breath in. Breath out. Suspend. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breath in. Breath out. Suspend. 1, 2, 3, 4. Breath in. Breath out. Suspend. 1, 2, 3. Breath in. Breath out. Suspend. 1, 2. Breath in. Breath out. Okay, simple. That may have felt like it relaxed you a little bit. It's just a real good emergency exercise to have on hand. Any questions?
Yes, question from Gail. That inhale feels very fast to me. Is that a typical? Should
No,
the inhale be at that rhythm?
well, a couple of things, Gail. One is that generally you're using it when you're already breathing way too fast, you're hyperventilating. So at that particular time, 2 is going to seem like a long time when you're already over breathing. Like let's say you ran up the stairs and you're panting. To breathe in for 2 is going to be quite a reduction in your speed. So that's why I said in the beginning that you may find this too fast because you're pretty relaxed right now. The other is that what this breathing rate is doing at 2 in and 3 out, if you follow that when you're breathing fast anyway, that's 1 breath every 5 seconds, which is 12 breaths per minute. And in turn, mostly my clients are asthmatics, they tend to breathe 20 to 30 times per minute. So this is a great reduction for them, Gail.
So if you were more relaxed than that, you could still use the same ratios, but go more at the 2 to 3 rhythm that you're already going at, but still practice that same exercise?
That's a great question, Gail. Mostly if that's really the case, then I would make the suggestion is to increase the exhale. So instead of breathing 3 out, breathe 4 out or 5 out, 2 in, 3 or 4, 5 out, and that will change it. You'll find that the 2 seconds in is not that long at that rate. Extend the exhale.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Ava, did you have your hand up too?
Yeah, I'm wondering, I know that you mentioned that sometimes an exhale through the mouth is helpful in certain circumstances, but I'm assuming that with all of these exercises that you're introducing to us, you're suggesting that we breathe in and out through the nose. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I had one question for you, and if you want to leave it to the end to answer, that's totally fine. But I find, you mentioned that we should keep our teeth lightly touching. However, I'm finding that that's introducing some like holding tension for me. And I'm someone who kind of clenches my jaw anyway. And oftentimes when I check in with myself, I'll be like, oh gosh, soften the muscles of my face. And so I'm wondering if you have any tips and tricks for maintaining proper physiological orientation without kind of clenching or introducing more tension.
Yeah, it is. I had the same problem, and somehow teaching it, people feel like their teeth are chattering a little bit because they're so used to not and to clenching. What really helped me manage that is to take and feel like this bottom part here is meeting the entire upper face. So it's not just limited to right here, but I bring more awareness into, this whole upper part, because evolutionary, there was creatures that didn't have a lower jaw. This is an advanced feature. And so I'm just bringing this whole piece in connection with this. And it helps me rest a little bit. And I also think about the tongue is at the roof of the mouth. And so I'm letting all of this soften into the support of the tongue. Bonnie, were you going to say something? I'll unmute you. Oh, no, you unmute you. It's not working.
Okay. There's so much variety in the configuration of people's bites, how their teeth meet. And Ava, what you said you were feeling is a really common thing for people who've had some dysfunction here for years. The most important thing in my experience is the tongue on the roof of the mouth, and that will actually start to remodel your bite. Especially in a younger person, you can, it's like self-orthodontia. If you get your tongue to behave properly, your teeth might shift, or the musculature that allows your teeth to come together will begin to shift. So if it creates tension to bring the teeth together, I think it's not a good idea to try to make them come together, because if the tongue goes to the roof of the mouth, the tongue will train the bite what to do over a period of time. That's been my experience with both myself and hundreds of people I've worked with this. So,
thanks.
Yeah.
Could I ask a clarifying question about that? So I know that you talked about putting the tip of your tongue on the first wrinkle behind your front teeth. Where is the rest of the tongue supposed to be? flush up against, or I know you said something about a curvature.
Up against the whole. It's really supposed to, like in children, in development, the tongue will sit in between the molars. It fits right up in between the molars. If you haven't used it for a while, you won't be able to get your tongue up in between the molars, but you can get them touching the molars. So it's curved like this up there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I see. Thank you.
That's why I said the thing act, so you get a feeling for it. So you get a feel, so the back of the tongue touches those back teeth. And so what you're really basically doing when you're playing with that is to try to bring more consciousness to the whole phenomenon of your tongue, so you have access to its movement. And putting it back up there. I like it back up there because it really loosens the back of my head. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I talked to my daughter who's a nurse, and I talked to her about that everybody should have a pulse oximeter. And she said it's in her training, it's one avenue to pay attention to. The number, especially now with COVID, the number of respirations are really important if you're deciding whether to go to the hospital. Because if you're short of breath, you're going to be breathing more respirations. But also what puts people in the hospital is when the pulse oximeter shows oxygen saturation below 90 in the 80s, then you're not getting, and then what's really happening is that the airway, the absorption of oxygen through the wall of the lungs into the blood is not efficient, and you're losing an ability to transfer oxygen to the blood, which means you're going to be in danger. Especially in the heart, of not getting enough oxygen. So I keep a pulse oximeter around my house. So if I were sick, I would be measuring my pulse oximeter. And so I put this up with this particular link, which gives an article on how to use a pulse oximeter and what to watch for. So it's in there. So they're under $20. You can get them. So I think it's a worthwhile tool, like having a thermometer. Just as an aside, I know we're running out of time. There's a company that distributed 500,000 thermometers a number of years ago in 2018. Which were tracked on the phone, and they've been collecting data. And what they're seeing is that the temperatures are coming down around the country. And so even though the cases are going up, the severity is coming down. So they're able to track everybody's temperature, which is an interesting thing that's been happening right now. Okay, just to wrap this up, I've said that. Nasal wash, cleaning your nose out. If you're outside and been breathing and not wearing a mask, and they are going to be going to probably requiring masks pretty soon for everybody who goes outside if you can get them. And social distancing from Stephen Porges. Here's a little video from him that says, when you're making contact with people, do it by FaceTime and Zoom, so you actually see your friends and your loved ones, not just talk to them or text them. And some information about smoke. I personally think everybody should have an air filter in their house, and they should have one room that they feel is safe. And so it's really clean. So if there's smoke outside, you can't open your windows, you've got one room which you can breathe in, because fire season's coming. We don't know what that's going to look like on top of this. So. And then I'm not going to go through any more. There's just, I'm here. I do private sessions. I'm doing something through Holistic Orthopedics on telemed, and insurance will pay for that. So if you need work, I'm helping you, can help you with that through insurance. And so that's it. If there are any last minute questions or comments, I think we're done. Like I said, there's many more slides, but you want to look at those. There are resources and other things you can tune into. There's a whole list of 28 reasons to use your nose for breathing to reinforce this conversation, and a lot of other resources. Anything else?
So you're going to be sending us the slides?
Right. This video will process probably within the next half hour. I'll upload it to YouTube, and I'll upload it to my Google Drive, which will have the slides in it. I'll send you an email with the links, and I will also attach all those slides to the email.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Kaj, yeah?
I want to say that learning Buteyko with you has been the best thing ever, because all through pneumonia, hospitals, and all the rest of it, I practiced it, and it made all the difference. So thank you many times.
You're welcome, Kaj. It's been my pleasure. Well.
Thank you, Robert.
Scott, you're welcome. Good to see you. Thank you all for your participation. I really appreciate it. And I think, if I got the email correctly, Lolly was on today. She's watching it. And I think she may translate this into Portuguese, so it gets distributed. So.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
The nasal, I saw just the quick slide about the nasal. What is the nasal washing or?
Well, traditionally in Ayurvedic medicine, a neti pot was used, and that's what this is.
I've heard that. I threw mine away because somebody died from that.
Well, what you have to do, thank you for mentioning that. What you have to do, especially in the South, it was where people died from it. You have to use sterilized water because there could be bacteria in there.
Yeah.
And that's what happened when people died. The bacteria got into their brain from nasal wash. But if you use good sterilized water, you're probably in better shape. Or just run it under your hands and throw it up into your nose. Just keep.
I used to do just like a saline water, just this with my hands like that whenever I was getting a cold and stuff like that, and then also gargle with it.
Yeah.
But the neti pot, do you still recommend that too?
Yeah, I like it. And
Okay. Mine is a watering can now for my grandkids. I threw it away. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Robert?
Yeah.
What do you think about those saline sprays from Arm & Hammer? What do you think about that instead of a neti pot?
You know, those are fine. I just happened to, somebody said on one of these talks that they heard that the saline kills bacteria, healthy bacteria. So I don't really know. So Bonnie shaking her head no. So I'm going to trust Bonnie here.
Well, saline, your mucus is the same salt content as saline. So saline doesn't kill bacteria. Saline just allows the balance in the mucous membranes to be what they normally are. So it's better to do nasal rinse with saline. If you use plain water, you're drawing the sodium out of your mucous membranes, and you'll end up with more nasal irritation or congestion. So you shouldn't do nasal wash without salt in the water.
And some people use what, baking powder with it, baking soda with it?
A pinch of baking soda makes just makes it more alkaline, and it doesn't sting as much.
And don't use iodized salt.
No, if you got to use just plain sea salt. It's okay if it has other minerals in it, because the body has other minerals in it, and it shouldn't be done under high pressure, so you're not forcing the water somewhere where it shouldn't go. If it should just rinse through without any resistance.
That's why I like the neti pot,
Yeah.
just a natural flow.
Right. Those squeeze bottles, sometimes people use too much pressure to force it through. Not a good thing to do.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Robert.
You're welcome. You. Very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert.
Sure will. Nice to see you all.
Good to see you.
All right. Take care, everybody. I'm going to end the meeting for everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Write me if you have any more questions, and watch for my email.
Sure will. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks a lot.